What is Bitcoin?
Bitcoin is 0.1% of the human race's liquid energy.
So what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a revolutionary technology that enables a new way to send payments over the internet.
Bitcoin is a brand new form of digital currency. It's similar to traditional currency, like the dollar or the euro, but instead of being issued by a central bank and printed on sheets of paper, it's completely digital.
You can think of it as an open accounting system, where thousands of computers all over the world work together to track ownership of digital tokens called bitcoins. When you send someone bitcoins, the transaction is broadcast to the entire network.
Bitcoin relies on very complicated cryptographic mathematics, but the principles behind it are actually fairly simple. First, bitcoins have value because they are scarce. Only 21 million bitcoins will ever be in circulation. So like gold or diamonds, Bitcoin derives its value from scarcity.
After it's verified, it's recorded in a public ledger called the blockchain.
Bitcoin is the world's first cryptocurrency, and it works because of the world's first public blockchain network.
The blockchain contains a record of every Bitcoin transaction that has occurred since the system began, and it's shared and maintained on the network, so everyone keeps the books, so to speak.
Each transaction is recorded onto a digital ledger called the blockchain, and that ledger cannot be altered or erased. So once a transaction is made, it's permanent. Each new Bitcoin user is issued a digital Bitcoin wallet with a unique identifying code. One individual can send Bitcoins to another individual instantly with the click of a button, and that change of ownership is simply recorded onto the end of the blockchain. In fact, every Bitcoin transaction ever made is on the blockchain right now.
Right now, it's a $400 billion asset.
What does Bitcoin do? It's simple.
Bitcoins are created by a simple piece of open source software, originally released in 2009, that uses a series of rules and mathematical algorithms to generate digital units of money called bitcoins.
It lets you send and receive value to and from anyone in the world using nothing more than a computer and an internet connection.
Bitcoins can be transmitted digitally over the internet from one individual to another from anywhere in the world.
Most currencies are issued by a central authority that controls the money supply. Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer system, so there is no central authority. Instead, Bitcoins are issued to users who help process transactions in the network. This is known as Bitcoin mining.
99.9% of the world doesn't get it. That means you're still early.
Now, why is it revolutionary? Because unlike every other tool for sending money over the internet, it works without the need to trust a middleman. The lack of any corporation in between means that Bitcoin is the world's first public digital payments infrastructure.
Bitcoin miners are specialized computers that do the work required to verify and record transactions in the blockchain. As a reward for their work, the miners earn Bitcoins, and this is how new Bitcoins are released into circulation.
Right now, there is a vast network of computers around the world simultaneously running Bitcoin software, creating new Bitcoins and trading Bitcoins across the network. Each Bitcoin is unique and cannot be copied or destroyed.
The system is programmed so that only 21 million Bitcoins will ever exist, and as time goes by, the mining reward decreases. The result is a predictable supply that's governed by scarcity, making Bitcoin somewhat like a digital gold.
And by public, I simply mean available to all and not owned by any single entity. Now, we have public infrastructure for information, for websites, for email. It's called the internet. But the only public payments infrastructure that we have is cash, as in paper money. And it only works in face-to-face transactions.
When we have a borderless digital money supply that doesn't recognize geopolitical boundaries, I think there will be a sort of social, cultural collaboration and freedom that we haven't seen before.
You can plug in yourself, your company, your organization, your agency, your product, your service, your family, or your ideology.
Before Bitcoin, if you wanted to pay someone remotely over the phone or the internet, then you could not use public infrastructure. You would rely on a private bank to open their books and add a ledger entry that debits you and credits the person you're paying. And if you both don't use the same bank, well, then there'll be multiple banks and multiple ledger entries in between.
Unlike writing a check, we don't need a bank to verify a Bitcoin transaction, because each Bitcoin transaction is automatically verified by the Bitcoin network. It's a technique called distributed consensus. Basically, the network of Bitcoin computers across the world looks at every transaction and comes to an agreement of who transacted what and when it happened. Then that transaction is recorded to the end of the blockchain ledger.
Bitcoin's a union. The union gets more powerful as more people join.
With Bitcoin, the ledger is the public blockchain, and anyone can add an entry to that ledger, transferring their Bitcoins to someone else.
It's just a completely revolutionary new financial system. It's going to make things more fair. It's going to enable more peer-to-peer systems to be built. It'll be a more transparent economy, more incorruptible as well.
And anyone, regardless of their nationality, race, religion, gender, sex, or creditworthiness, can for absolutely no cost create a Bitcoin address in order to receive payments digitally.
And in the war for the future of money, it's going to be won with money.
And many Bitcoin users believe it's better than the money we've used for thousands of years.
It's the first currency of the internet, and everyone is free to use it.
Bitcoin is the world's first globally accessible public money. Is it perfect? No.
Most people don't know that every time you go to a store or restaurant and use your credit card instead of cash, the merchant has to pay the credit card company a transaction fee, usually around 2% or more. So why is no one complaining? Because credit card companies have lobbyists who have helped to enact no surcharge laws across the United States. These laws prohibit merchants from charging for credit card usage, which means the fees remain secret and the credit card companies get richer and richer.
Is it perfect? No. Neither was email when it was invented in 1972.
With Bitcoin, you can send any amount of money to anyone, anywhere in the world, as easily as sending an email.
This is something that hasn't changed much in the last 100 years. In the Bitcoin world, we're taking this big quantum leap and moving ahead several orders of magnitude in freedom.
It's not yet accepted everywhere. It's not used often to quote prices, and it's not always a stable store of value.
It's the future because it's just better. It's faster and easier to send money and store money with Bitcoin than it is with traditional finance, without anyone getting involved, without any bank fees or wait times or any censorship of the transaction whatsoever.
But it is working, and the mere fact that it works without trusted intermediaries is amazing. It's a computer science breakthrough, and it will be as significant for freedom, prosperity, and human flourishing as the birth of the internet.
It removes borders from financial transactions, very similar to how the internet erased borders from conversations and from communications.
Bitcoin is an economic machine based on a truth machine, poised to emerge as a freedom machine.
Shall we see how we make money? This is our main printing room with the presses printing various denominations of bills. Now, the result is valuable green paper, which people refer to as money.
If it's only green paper, what makes it so valuable?
There are $400 trillion of other assets floating around in our current fiat system. They're leaking energy, they're corrupt, they're inefficient.
There's a technology called Bitcoin that answers those questions, and it changed the way I look at money and the world we live in.
If some form of structure can take away your property or your wealth, you're going to be stranded. Being financially independent and not being subject to a third party's power is one of the most freeing things in the world. The ability to keep property and keep wealth is a huge step in your freedom.
It's the best choice we have to save our civilization and realize the ideal world envisioned by Ayn Rand and the objectivist movement.
We would have never been able to imagine social networking taking over our lives and changing the way we fundamentally communicate with another individual. And we wouldn't have imagined how Twitter could essentially start a whole movement of people in the Middle East. We just would not have imagined that the internet was capable of doing that, and yet it was.
it is our best hope. And as with the internet in the 1990s, we need a light touch, pro-innovation policy to ensure that these innovations flourish in America for the benefit and security of all Americans.
Join us.